G'day and welcome back. Today I've got a Philips radio. It was made in the Netherlands, or made in Holland actually, and it's from about 41, maybe 42. The owner surmises that it would have been under German rule, so this was probably made under German guard. Anyway, nice looking radio. It's got the wrong cloth on it. Somebody's already had a go at this at some point. The scale's in good condition. It's coming out a bit blotchy on the camera there, but it's in good condition in the flesh, and it's typical of the European scales. It's got all the little cities and towns all over the Europe there, bit of England there. From the back it's pretty standard. It's typical IF tubes for Philips. Big output valve there, and there's another valve behind there, so 1, 2, 3, it's 4 valve set. Here's the decal. It says Philips, made in Holland, model number 206A. The owner brought this around this morning for me, and we've already had it out of the case, and I quickly put power on it and to see what it would do. I couldn't get it to work. So I'll take it out of the case again, and we'll have a look and see what's wrong with it. There it is out of its cover. These valves are in pretty ordinary condition. That one's loose. This one's got tape around it. This one on the end's loose as well, so the shield's not connected to the base. There's a voltage selector on the end here, and it goes to 110 volts. So they must have expected to send it to 110 volt countries, Canada probably. That's set to 220, where our voltage here is 230 to 240, so it's going to be running a bit hot with it on there. I'd rather go to 240 and be a bit cooler. Here's the bottom of it, and there's lots of stuff in here. Now it's got rubber covered wire, so that needs to be all replaced. All the wire in here has to go. It also has these black capacitors that Philips liked. That one's cracked up. The rest look fairly good. Look at that one there, it's a bit cracked. In here it's got a filter capacitor. I changed it. It had this one in here. This is an Australian one, so it's been changed at some time. And one end was just loose, it was flapping around. So I put a 10 microfarad cap in there. But I've had it powered up, and as I said, I couldn't get it to work, but I think I know why. Alright, I'm ready to go. Why it wouldn't work this morning is because I had it in this hole here. This is the antenna, and it was in there, and I think that's the shortwave. So I'll stick it in here, and I think it might work. So I'll give it another go now with it in the right place, and let's see what happens. It's got a nasty buzz already. Not sure what that means. I've got it on medium wave. This morning I didn't know where it was, but when I looked at this it says medium wave's in the middle. So that's where I've got it. It should be working by now. Okay, now I'll be quiet so you can hear it. So that's on full volume. And that's about the best station you can get, the loudest station. The globe's on pretty bright, so it's pulling a lot of power. It'll be leaking caps. But basically it does work. So the transformers work, all the valves are working, I assume, to some degree. They do need sort of fixing up. Not a lot of static coming through, not a lot of hum. So what I'll do, I'll take this glass off to keep it safe. I don't want to damage that. I'll take all the valves out, go and clean it up, flip it over, change all the wires, change all the capacitors. There's things like this. Look, this capacitor's just loose. The dial string is more like a dial rope. Someone's used some string there. It's working all right, I've got to say. But I'll probably change that and put some proper non-stretchy string on. So give me a minute. I'll take this dial glass off, take all the valves out, and I'll take it out the workshop and clean it up. I'll start by getting this glass out. Oops. Guess I don't have to undo that one. Okay. Now it's also got an Australian roller speaker, so the speaker's been replaced at some time. And there's a little Slater wood light. There he is. So he might have got into the speaker, or some of his friends have got in there. So we'll have to have a look at that. I've taken the nuts off the speaker. Let's see what the cone looks like. Goes right over it. Yeah, actually, I didn't realise that would go all the way over. I sort of thought it was cut out in the middle, but makes sense, I guess. Oh gosh, it's got wire around it. Alright, there it is. Good as new. Could have left it there. No, it's perfect. Good. Let's see if I can get these valves out without breaking them. There you go. These are the Phillips P-series valves with the terminals on the outside, and they kind of lock in. So that needs to be glued back again, and I would assume this shield goes to one of the pins. Now this valve's interesting. This is the output valve, and it's a pentode with a double diode in it. Oh, what's going on here? Oh dear. I don't have any of these valves spare, so I'll just cut that out. It's got tape around the bottom. It's hard to know what's going on here. It looks like they've actually glued the cap on the top of the valve. Now I'm guessing that's not from the factory. It's got tape around the bottom. As I said, these valves lock in, so they're a bit hard to get out. This is in the bottom of the rectifier valve. There's a bit of paper there to make better contact with the contacts. So all these repair secrets are gold. I've got to remember these. And the last valve, this is the IF amp. Alright, I'll take this outside, clean it up as best I can. I'm not going to film that because I've done it before, and we'll just determine what I need to do to get this working properly. The owner sent me through a little bit of info, and he sent me the schematic, which I've got to print out. And he says, I have no history on this radio other than Radio Museum's confirmation that it was made in Eindhoven in 1940 to 41, while the factory was in German Wehrmacht hands, and brought to Australia after the war, presumably as a personal import. Its origin makes an interesting thing, as Philips' wartime history is a mixture of grudging compliance, brave subterfuge, and ingenious sabotage. I also wonder who first owned it and what they listened to. It was my first purchase at auction after joining the club, that's the radio club. So it's got some sentiment to him. There's a bit of interesting reading on what happened to Philips during the war. They were very prepared for the war. They were very smart. I got all those photos off the website. If you want to read about it, I'll put a link in the description. Now back to the radio. I've cleaned it up as well as I'm going to. And as I said, I'm not going to get too carried away with it. It's not too bad. It's got a plating on it. It's probably CAD plated. It hasn't really got any rust on it. So I'm going to leave it like that. Now, of course, I've got to change all the capacitors and any resistors. This wiring is all shot. That all has to be redone. But I think I'll start on this capacitor first. And as we saw before, the mounting on it is shot. It also has wires going to it that need to be replaced. So I might as well do that now. I can take this off. I might clean it up a bit more than what it is. So while this is off, I think I'll put it in the sandblaster, and I'll just try and lightly sandblast it, make it look a bit nicer. Here's one of the mounting nuts here for the tuner. Interestingly, it's got one of these wind-on wire capacitors. I did an Australian Chrysler radio not long ago, and everyone was intrigued by the little wind-on capacitors. So I didn't know how widespread they were, but there they are on a Philips set from the 40s in another country. So obviously they were used elsewhere. I think I'll just have to put my finger in there and hang on to these nuts while I undo the screws from the top. So I've got my finger in there. I think they'll come out. Yeah, there they go. There's another screw down here I've got to try and get to. I should take that pulley off the front, that would make it easier. There we go. This should lift off now, I think. Oh, it's on a plate. No, it's not going to. There's a wire underneath. Hang on. Right, here's the wire here. I'll just get it out of there. Another wire here. I'll snip that off. But I'll need a bigger iron to solder that back on. Right, I'm just going to cut these wires because I need to know where they go. So I'll cut that as well. There's the capacitor, and these rotors and stators look like they're made of brass. As I said, I'll go and clean this up in the sandblaster. Here's the mounting nut for the tuner, and it's got a shoulder on it, whatever you want to call it, and like that, there you go. And the tuner mounts on that, but then this is mounted in rubber. So I'll have to come up with some alternative pieces of rubber to put in there. Anyway, I'll go and throw this in the media blaster. I've cleaned everything up, the little plate there. The capacitor I cleaned up a bit, so that's much better. It's much cleaner, just got the rust off there. I also cleaned up the chassis as well, where the tuner had been. The tuner was mounted on these things, and these used to be rubber, and it's virtually a grommet with a larger size top on it. So what I'm going to do is use a grommet like they had, and then I'll put a little spacer grommet on there to build up the height. So I think that'll work pretty good. Before I fit the tuner back, I need to replace these wires. Now this wire here runs along the top of the chassis, so I'll change it with a nice looking wire. I used a bit of this antique looking wire. It looks like it's cloth covered. It's actually a fiberglass. I've just put some flux on there, and I'm using the old solder. I'll do the same with this wire here, but I'm going to use a cheaper wire. This one's plastic coated, so I shouldn't have said cheaper. I've got more of it, so I'll use this up. I'll do the last two wires, I'll come back and I'll mount the tuner. I've put the rubber grommets in and then put the nuts in through the bottom. Now I've preloaded this wire to replace this one so I don't have to thread it through later. Should fit in there. Little bracket on the front. And I should be able to screw that in there. And the other one in there. Okay. That fits in there. I should be able to do those up. There. And the two front ones as well. That feels good. It's solid, but it's just got a little bit of give in there. This wire goes on the bottom of this trimmer, I think. So I might just take this off, save me trying to burrow through from the bottom. I can just get this wire. It's not that easy. It would be impossible from the bottom. There's another wire here that needs insulation, but I think I can do that with some heat shrink. Alright, that's one wire done. I'll flip it over, I'll do all the rest, I'll come back. This wire here is the one I said needed some insulation and I'd use heat shrink, so I'm going to do that. This capacitor here used to be a dual capacitor. It's been replaced with an Australian capacitor. It's 25 microfarad, and this used to be the other one that was in here. I've put a temporary one in here. So I'm going to have to get this out of the circuit, so I think I'll try and mount two capacitors side by side up on the side of the radio here. I'll attempt to get some heat shrink on here. I'll crush the old insulation off. I've got all the old insulation off. I should be able to just push that up. That heat shrink went on alright. I've just got to solder this down here. And this is a lug to ground. There's another wire off the capacitor that I just put in. Alright, good. I'll shrink this on and it should look alright. That looks pretty good, and that's how I'm going to do a lot of the wiring on here. Any high voltage stuff I'll use proper wire, I won't just be doing this to it. But now I'll just have a quick look at this capacitor. I need to find a ground to put these two capacitors on, and this has just been bent over and hopefully it would make contact with the metal. It'd probably be okay. That's how they were running it. What I'll do is drill a hole through the metal in there and I'll bolt a tab on there so I can get a good ground. I've jumped ahead a bit. I've mounted the earth tab down here and I've soldered the two capacitors to it already. Now this capacitor's got to come over here. This is B plus sitting up here, so I've got to extend that to get over there. This one has to go on here, and also this yellow wire from the tuning capacitor. They've used a Quig type connector here, a little spiral. I'll take that off and make my own up. I have my little Quig maker here. That'll be long enough. Let's cut him off. I've got my Quig on there, I've got all the wires in, so it's just a matter of heating it all up and that'll sweat together. Okay. This wire here that goes on the B plus, I won't put that on yet because I've got to change this wire here, so I'll just leave all that and do that all at once. This will take me the rest of the day to finish this. I'm not going to film anymore. I just showed you what I was going to do, how I was going to use the heat shrink and change the wires, make up new Quigs to put on there. So leave it with me. I'll replace everything that needs to be replaced. I'll test all the resistors as I go. I did test this one while it was disconnected and that's okay. It was 27k. So I'll check the rest as I go along. I'll come back in a minute and we'll have a look and see how it went. I thought I'd stop and give you a half-time report. I started at this end and I'm just working my way across and I'm to about here. There's still some wires at the back to be done there, the filament supply wires, so they're running the length of the chassis. But I've changed all the rubber wire up this end. all the capacitors have been replaced. There was a support bar here. I've taken that out to get better access, and I've taken this little shield out too. So that's opened that up for me. With the smaller components, of course, it looks much more open. I had trouble with these two guys at the end here. They're not in the circuit diagram at all. And in the drawings of the chassis, this leg here is not even used. So I've got a different radio to what I've got in the circuit diagram. This board here has got different coils on it. I've got the transformer wiring to do still. So I've got quite a lot to go yet. There's probably only 4 capacitors to do, but it's taking forever. So I think I said I'll spend the rest of the day. I'm going to spend a whole day doing this. This will take me 8 hours. So I'll continue with this, and next time I come back, this will be done. I've finished all the rewiring. I've changed all the caps. I've been doing the wiring and the caps for about 5 days. I didn't do it every day, but it's taken a long time. Anyway, it was a fair bit of work, but it's all done. Here's the casualty list, and look at all that wire that I changed, and plus all the other stuff I just put heat shrink on, so I undid every wire there at some point. And there's all the capacitors, and look, they just break apart. They're cracked, yeah. So anyway, they're out. I've got new ones in. I've replaced all the wires on the transformer. There's quite a number there. And of course the load here on the voltage selector. Here's the underneath with all the new capacitors in it. All the wires here have been heat shrinked. There's a number of them there. And I tested all the resistors. They're all fine. They're perfect. They're very good. I also went through and tested as many capacitors as I could. As one end was disconnected while I changed a wire or something, I would test them. I didn't do all of them because they were connected, a lot of them. But they've all come up perfect. The ones I tested were spot on. I was able to hook the valve contacts here and clean them up with a little fiberglass cleaning brush. And that kind of stretched them out a bit and cleaned them up. So hopefully that'll make good contact. This one had a bit of paper behind it to make contact. There you go. Now, I haven't done anything to these valves. I'm putting them back exactly the way they came out. But after I'm sure the radio is going to work, I'll fix them up. I didn't want to play around with them before I made sure the radio worked. I think I'm okay to put power on. We'll see what happens. I've wired the shop speaker in. So dim bulb. Whoops. Here's sparking. The bulb hasn't come on. Something's sparking somewhere. What is that? Is that the capacitor? Yep. Alright, I got some sparking going on in the capacitor here somewhere. There it is, there you can see it. That means there's power on that capacitor. I'll get my voltmeter out. Now I've got my voltmeter here. We'll see what's on here. 140 volts. Okay, something wrong there. This lead here is going to the oscillator capacitor that's doing the sparking, and it's coming straight up here, straight onto B+. I have no idea why I've put it there. I cannot even imagine. It should go over here somewhere. Probably there. There it is there. That's where I took it off. As you know, every time I make a wiring mistake, I've got to go and watch an episode of Lost. I'll be back in a second. Oh, forget it, I'll watch it later. Alright, I'll cut this off and reposition this wire. I've installed the wire in the right place, replaced the heat shrink. I'll turn it over, we'll try it out. Let's try it again. Volume's on full. Come on. Nothing. I've put a knob on here so I can tune it a bit easier. It's a bit irrelevant at the moment, it doesn't work. Alright, I'll do a finger test. Nothing there. Nothing. There's a hum from the speaker, but nothing's getting through there. I've got my little generator tracer here. It's on full volume, turned on. Try that. Oh, there's just the slightest noise. You probably can't even hear it. So the amplifier's not working very well. We'll go the other way. I have it in tracer mode now, so we'll see if we're getting a signal to here. Look at that. I'll try tuning it. Try another wave. Well, something like that. That sounds like it's working there. Not up here. Well, there's nothing there. So it looks like we've got a tuning problem and an amplifier problem. And that sounds all the world like the oscillator's not working. I'll flip it over again. We'll have a look at it on the oscilloscope. Now I had a look at the schematic. It should be pin 6. I'll put that on there. We've got nothing on the oscilloscope. Alright, it's on medium wave. There's nothing there. Nothing there. No, let's try another wavelength. We'll see if there's anything on that. There's nothing on that. So the fault is common. There's another one here somewhere. Over here. There's nothing on that one either. So, alright, so there's something that's... Oh, wait on, there it is. Hang on. There it is. But it's going. You would think maybe a short in the capacitor, but I checked the capacitor. I used a multimeter to make sure it wasn't touching anywhere, ran it through. Okay, I'll have another look at that. Alright, I've turned the radio upside down. Now, when I was working on the radio, I noticed these two little wires here are loose, and I let it go because I wasn't sure where they went. I didn't go anywhere near any of this, so I don't know how that would have happened, and I'm not sure what the wires are for. I've got an idea that's medium wave if it's going to be for anything, because this coil here is medium wave. Here's the oscillator tuning capacitor here, C35. I'll leave that for a minute, I'll come back to that. This whole area here is the oscillator. What I thought I'd do is check the continuity of these coils here first. These are the 3 wavelengths, of course. I think this is medium wave, and I think that one is the one that's flying in the breeze. So if I put a meter on here just after this resistor, I should be able to run it through there down to ground. So I'll do that first, we'll check that, then I can come and do this one. This one's got the switches in it to change between the waves, so I can just operate the switches and check each coil. I'll go and find this point here and put my meter on there. That's the resistor there. If I put my meter on here, see if we got continuity. No continuity. Now I'm just looking at the back here, there's nothing on the back. This terminal's going nowhere. It would have had one of those wires on it. I've retrieved one of the wires and it looks like it's tinned on the end, ready to go. So I'll try and solder it on here. Alright, I think that's one. I've got to find out where the other one goes now. This is the first one I did, and I did the other one off camera. It's quite fiddly, you may not be able to see that, but there's a little point there. So I'll check it for continuity. That's R5 where I had it the first time. And we've got 5.1. You can't see it, I've run out of cameras. I'm turning the wave switch and nothing should happen. Now if I go to the 3rd position it should change. There it is. Alright, so that's working. I'll flip it over and we'll see if it works this time. I'll leave it on dim bulb, put some power on. Full volume. We're on medium wave. We should have something by now. Nothing there. That's still not working, so the amp's not working. Hang on. I've got my signal tracer again and I've got it in trace mode. Stick that on there. That sounds better.
A lot of people just are fearful and they don't take up those rights, and that's been the case. as early, only
Smoky American barbecue with juicy ribs and brisket. Stay tuned, punters. This one is going to be a biggie. Head into the boxes now.
Alright, that's working now. Thank goodness. Okay, I'm going to put it on full power. See if that's any better. It won't make any difference.
$6.08 Kenya Angel. 4-6.
has conversation to learn about. Doing an algorithm, and that often misses the human content.
My guess is Claire Moore. She's a former Queensland.
Alright, that's working. I can't really test shortwave or long wave. I certainly can't test long wave. I can try shortwave. Yeah. So that's working as well. Long wave, we'll see what it seems to be working. Yeah, okay, well, that's working as well. So everything's working, just haven't got an amp. Alright, so I guess I'll start looking at what's wrong with the amp. I don't have a valve, which would be the first thing I would change, but I can check voltages, check this system here. See if I can get anything out of the speaker at all. There's nothing. Nothing there. So in the morning, I'll have a look at this amplifier. Yesterday I had the radio working up to here, but the amplifier section doesn't appear to be working. I need to investigate that today. Alright, the power's on, it's warmed up, and I'm getting absolutely nothing when I put my finger on there. I can't hear anything. I'll take this grid wire off. Hang on. Put power back on again. Alright, it's warmed up again. I'll try. Very, very small amount of hum coming through. Yeah, not much at all. I suspect this valve, and as I said before, I don't have any of these. So I'll turn it over and check some voltages. I'll check the voltage on the output valve for a start. There's some voltages I wrote down for it. There's only 3. I think pin 4 will be the cathode. So that's pin 8. This is supposed to be about 260. I have another manual that says it should be about 240. I got 213. Now that was the plate. The screen is this one here, and that should be 240. I think it was about 230 on the other manual. That's 208. Now the other one is pin 4, which will be the cathode, and we got 40 volts. Yikes! Why has it got so much? That's worth investigating. I followed the circuit for the anode bias for this valve, and there's nothing wrong. Everything's fine. I think all the problems with low voltages and high voltages are due to this valve. So what I've come up with is a Franken valve. This is a 6BV7. It's a no-val base. This one, of course, is a P base, but I had a spare P base, and the 6BV7 is the same as the EBL1, more or less. It's similar. So I'm going to substitute this for that one. Now this is just sitting there. I'll get rid of that. This has got a bit of string, so I can get the bass out again. And I should be able to push that in there somehow. Is that the right one? Yeah, there we go. Now the grid. Now this is the grid. I'll just tack it on with a bit of solder that's on there. That'll do. Right, I've got a dim bulb again, just in case. There's another one. Oh, it works. I wasn't even thinking about it. I have to get it off there.
Aussies were among the arrivals too. This is my first time going overseas in over 2 years. Very exciting. It was so great to get on the plane.
Now, it sounds absolutely awful. It's very bassy, no treble.
The border closures have reached.
Anyway, it's working. I'll flip it over and I'll check those voltages again. Alright, the radio's flipped over again. I'll put it on full power. I've got 2 lots of voltages here now. This is the voltages out of the Philips specifications. These are out of Trader. They're substantially lower. These are probably more real world than what you get in the lab. So We'll see if we come up close to that. So I've set the radio up exactly as they have it in Trader, and we'll see what we get. Pin 8 was the plate, and it was about 200 before. Now it's 266. That's spot on what they've got. This is the screen, and it was 220 or something. Now it's 243, so it's coming up exactly what this was. 22 we need on that. Let's see what we got. That's the bias, and we got 20.8, so 21. Absolutely spot on. Alright, I need to go and order some valves. I've put out an APB on a new EBL1 output valve with the double diode built in as well. Very hard to get. The normal channels have all come back and said they can't give me one. But I have other means, so I'll hang in there. We'll see if we can get one. Might end up getting one from overseas. While we're waiting for the valve, I can do a few other things. These valves here, they're loose in the base, this one and this one. And this valve has a metallic spray-on shield, and it's lost its connection. It connects to pin 1, but that connection is lost because the material is missing from here. So I need to reinstate the material. I'll take this valve out. These are the devil to get out. Goodness me. Now I've got a cunning plan to resurrect this valve and fix it in the base, and also try and repair the connection between here and pin 1. What I'm going to try and do is desolder the wires going up to the elements inside the valve, pull this off, clean it all out, glue it back in, get pin 1 wire running back from pin 1 up to here, and then I'll fix that later on, and then try and put a conductive coating in here to try and pick up the old shield. That's the plan. This might be interesting. This is pin 1. There's a group of 4 there. You start on the left. That's pin 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8. So it's in the reverse order than what I'm used to. Now my plan is to heat this solder up here and remove it with my solder sucker. I can't get this one to melt, so I'll add a bit more solder to it. There we go. I might continue that idea, so I'll add a bit of solder. Okay. That was the last one. I'll hold the valve and just try and pull it out from one side. I'll have to let these go individually. Now before I start, this pin 1, I'll just put a mark. I might put it up there, so I know that's pin 1. A lot of these wires are free and maybe just holding on by a little bit of solder, so I'm just going to move them away from the edges, and I should be able to pull this apart. Okay, I've got another plan. I'm heating it up. I've got the soldering iron jammed in the vise, and I'm just heating it up and pulling the wires away from the edges. That's working pretty well. That one's free, that one's free. This one's not. Okay, I might be able to pull that away. No, there's still some wires hanging on there. That side seems to be off. There it goes. There's that shield earthing wire there, and that's pin 1, as I said. I'm going to go and clean all this up. I'll prepare some adhesive, and I'm going to glue it back together. Something I didn't mention was these wires come out from 2 points in the base of the valve here, and then are splayed out to where they need to go. So I've got to make sure I don't upset the sequence. So I'm not touching them, they're right where they should be. I've got pin 1 marked there, so I know that's pin 2, 3, 4. Now you're probably wondering, how am I going to get these wires back through the holes? Well, up until a few minutes ago I didn't know. I think I can do it. I've got some multi-strand wire here. I'm going to solder it on the end of these wires, and then feed this through the base, and then I can solder it up. So I'll try and tin this wire if I can. And I'll start here. There's one. Another one. Okay, they're all done. They should be okay. The next thing I want to do is just remove the excess solder from in the holes here in the base. I've got my Dremel with a little drill in it. Now the other thing I need to do is run a wire up from the pin number 1 to the shield. So So I've got a bit of fairly thin wire here. I'll put that in there. I might as well solder it in, I suppose. I'll start at pin 1, that's that mark there. So the first pin to the right of it is pin number 2. Now I had a couple of false starts. I'm having trouble getting the wire in there. I should have made this wire longer, I think, but I'm sort of getting there now. Okay, I've got all the wires through. Hopefully just a matter of pulling them through now. I'll straighten all these wires out and I should be able to just push that down. Maybe. There's one wire there. Another one there. Another one. Another one. One there. Okay, they're all in. I think this ground wire I've got in here is too thick. I'm going to change it. I think this will work. I've pulled that back a little bit. I'll replace this wire. I just passed a new one through there. I've got some JB Weld mixed up here, so I'm going to try and apply it. It's not going to need much. Alright, so all I have to do now is push down and pull these wires out again. There's one. Yeah, they're just about coming out. They're coming out by themselves. In fact, they're all out. Good. I'm going to go and clamp this in something so that it's held together firmly. I'll come back in the morning and this should have dried. This is dry now, so I'll take all the masking and the rubber bands off. Yeah, it's ruined that Phillips sticker. Anyway, I wasn't too worried about that. Yeah, unfortunately this hasn't come out as neat as I'd hoped, so I'll just sit here and clean this up a bit and I'll come back and we'll do the next step. I've cleaned this up as well as I need to. I took the sticker off, it pretty much fell off anyway, and I need to secure this ground wire and I need to wrap it around here, and I hope I've made it long enough. Wow, only just long enough. Now to finish it off, I'll pass it under the original bit of wire there where it comes out of the valve, and hopefully I can pull it tight and then just kind of pull it back like that, and then I'll put a blob of solder on there. There we go. I'll cut his tail off. Good. So the next step will be to solder the leads into the base. They soldered in very well. So what I'm going to do now is put the valve in the radio and see if it still works. I've refitted the valve, I'll see if it works. I'll put it on dim bulb and I'll see what it does in case I've wired the filament into the plate or something. There it is.
In the forest, coming at 3 AM to collect all his hives.
Ah, that's great. I really wondered if I'd crossed over any of the wires in there. Alright, I'll pull it out again and we'll go on to the next process. Now the next step is to connect this wire that I put around the base here to the existing shield. And from what I know, the shield is under this red protective paint, and I think it's a gold colour. So I will clean it back just a bit. And I've got some conductive paint, and I'm going to connect, well, I'm going to paint between here and there to connect the two, you know, the wire and the shield together. So if I just take a little bit off all the way around, well, Really don't have to go all the way around. I suppose I could just do it in little sections, and as long as it made some contact somewhere, it's probably good enough. But I'll go around as far as I can. To join that wire to the screen, I'm going to use some silver conductive paint that I've got here, and this is a varnish with just impregnated with silver, or it's got silver in it. So I'll just paint that on there, and hopefully that will connect the two together. I'll see how it goes on. Oh, that's not bad, it just goes on like a paint. Tell you what I'll do, I'll mask that Bakelite base up. I've put some tape on, and that'll keep the paint off the base. I didn't really want to be cleaning that off. I'm going to let this dry for a while and give it another coat or two or whatever it needs to get a nice contact on it. So, but yeah, that's come up good. I'm happy with that so far. While I'm waiting for that paint to dry on the valve, I thought I'll have a look at the other valves. This wire here, the grid cap and the grid wire, they're kind of bent at funny angles. Obviously it's working, but I'm just not sure what's in there. So I'm going to unsolder it. I want to clean this grid cap up anyway. I'll straighten this up and try and pull the insulation away from wire. I could probably leave it, but then I wouldn't know what was going on inside. This is alright. It's got a little ceramic insulator in there and just had the wire covering over the top, so I'll just replace the covering and we're good to go. I have some cloth coated rubber wire insulation. It's new stuff, of course. It's just made to look like that. Now hopefully I can get that down and we can get a nice yellow wire in there. Okay, good. I'll go and clean this valve up and I'll polish the grid cap and coat it with some clear coat to stop it corroding. This is the rectifier. Its base is loose as well, so I'll clean up in there and just push some adhesive in there. Also clean up the glass and that'll be okay. Now another thing I have to do is get this cap off this EBL1 output valve. It's been glued on and then there's a wire running through the center of it, so I'm not sure what's going on there. So what I'm hoping I can do is just kind of peel this away. I don't know what sort of adhesive it is, but just try and bend it so that it cracks the adhesive. Like that. I'll try in this direction if I can avoid skewering my hand. It's kind of a soft adhesive. I can almost just, it's not like silicone, but it's like a putty. Okay. There we go. Ooh. Something I thought of was that there was no contact in here originally, and that's why this valve doesn't work. So I wonder if I can actually establish a contact there. It's broken off right down to the glass. I managed to solder a bit of wire on the top there. It's not very secure, but I'll see if I can get it to work. I'm on full power. I'll turn the power on. There it goes.
That resulted in a number of conversations.
Alright, so that was the problem with that valve. That top grid cap is not working. We're close to getting a new one. I would not put it back with that tiny bit of contact on there. It will just fail eventually, so we'll see if we can get a new one. If not, I guess I still have the option of trying to perhaps grind a bit of the glass away and get a bit more purchase on the wire sticking out. But yeah, let's get a new one. I've cleaned up the cap and the little plate with the grid stopper on it, ready for the output valve when we get there, but I want to see how my conductive paint went. It's been overnight, so that paint is quite dry. I'll just take the tape off. Oops, got a bit of paint in there. Alright, I can get that off. Now see if I've got continuity between here and the screen. Here's the 4 pins in a row, so that's pin 1. Right, I've got my meter down the bottom here. You should be able to see it. It'll be out of focus a little bit. There's a bit of the red coating is missing here, so I can see some of the gold. So I'll just see if I can get any. There you go. Now it's not going to be a permanent contact. It'll just be fleeting. But yeah, so it's connected. So pin 1 is now connected to that screen. That repair has been successful. There's still one more step to go before I finish, but I'll go out to the workshop to do that. I'm at my shed. I've masked off the area of the silver paint there. I've got some red engine enamel here. I'm going to paint the valve with it. I've done this before with these valves and it comes up pretty good. So I'll just give it a spray. I'll leave this to dry for a little while. They'll come back, put another coat on, and that should do it. This has been drying overnight. It should be dry enough. I'll take the tape off. There you go. It's a seamless repair. Not quite. I'm going to rough it up with some fine steel wool and try and make it look a bit aged. There it is. That's not too bad. The steel wool has taken that gloss off. If it didn't have the markings on here, I would do the whole valve and rough it back with the steel wool, and they look pretty much like their original, but I wanted to hang on to the markings if I could. I've put the valve in and it looks pretty good. It's retained as patina and it's functional now, so that's always good. Now I went to a lot of trouble there. I was just trying out ideas and to see if it could be done. I could get a new valve if I needed it, so I wasn't too worried about destroying it if I couldn't fix it. But it's all a matter of just developing methods to be able to do things if you do need to do it. Anyway, this is the end of part 1. In part 2, I'm going to have a look at the alignment. It should be interesting on this one. It'll be a little different to normal. And I'll do a couple of unusual things next week. So I hope you enjoyed part 1, and I hope you can join me for part 2 of my Philips 206A radio adventure.